13. Worst gay relationships. Black R&B legends tried to hide. What if the greatest love stories of R&B were never sung on stage, but buried in silence? Behind the platinum records, Grammys, and screaming fans, some of music's most legendary black artists carried secrets they could never reveal. Hidden relationships, whispered rumors, and forbidden passions that could have ended entire careers. This is the side of R&B history they didn't want you to know. Today we expose the 13 worst gay relationships black R&B legends tried to hide. Don't just watch, like, comment, and subscribe to Legends of Black Excellence as we uncover the truths behind the music. Luther Vandross. Luther Vandross is remembered as one of the most powerful balladeers in music history. A man whose voice carried tenderness, heartbreak, and passion in ways few singers could match. His career spanned more than 3 decades, producing hits like Never Too Much Here and Now and A House Is Not a Home. With 8 Grammy Awards and over 40 million albums sold worldwide, Luther built a reputation as the king of soulful love songs. Women across the world imagined him as the dream man behind those lyrics. Yet privately, Luther's love life was not the fairy tale his music suggested. It was a story of silence, loneliness, and hidden truths. Unlike many of his peers, Luther never married and never publicly acknowledged a romantic partner. This silence fueled decades of speculation. Close friends, including his lifelong confidant Patti LaBelle, later admitted what fans had long suspected, that Luther was gay, but deeply afraid of what coming out would mean for his career. Patti once said Lou was a man who loved men, but he kept it a secret so he wouldn't upset the world. For a black male artist in the 1980s and 1990s, an era still hostile to openly gay entertainers, such a revelation could have meant career suicide. Luther chose instead to pour his emotions into music, creating love ballads that mirrored the desires and heartbreaks he could never express openly. Rumors swirled about a mysterious long-term companion Luther had in Los Angeles during the late 1980s. Friends described him spending quiet evenings at home, far away from Hollywood's chaos, in the company of someone who may have been the love of his life. Yet there were no photos, no public acknowledgments, and certainly no interviews about it. Luther himself once confided to Hollywood screenwriter Bruce Vilanch, "No one knows I'm in the life." It was a chilling statement, not because of shame, but because of the weight of secrecy he had to carry until the end. Do you think Luther Vandross should have risked everything and lived openly, or was his silence the only way he could survive in that era? What makes Luther's story so tragic is that the very industry that celebrated his voice forced him into silence about his heart. He was loved for making others feel understood, yet he himself lived with a private ache. Some insiders revealed that after performances, when crowds of fans expected him to celebrate at glamorous parties, Luther often retreated alone to quiet dinners. He avoided scandal, avoided exposure, and in doing so, avoided the joy of fully living his truth. When Luther died in 2005 at just 54 after complications from a stroke and long-term diabetes, tributes poured in from around the world. Yet many noted that the man who gave voice to love never got to openly declare his own. His discography remains a treasure of passion and tenderness, but also a monument to what happens when society silences authenticity. Luther Vandross's legacy is both luminous and heartbreaking proof that sometimes even the sweetest music comes from the deepest pain. Little Richard. Few figures in American music burned as brightly as Little Richard. With his explosive energy, flamboyant style, and wild piano riffs, he was not only a founding father of rock and roll, but also an R&B icon who inspired generations. His hits like Tutti Frutti Long Tall Sally and Good Golly Miss Molly broke barriers in the 1950s, earning him global fame. He wore makeup, glittering costumes, and dared to embody gender fluidity long before society had the language to describe it. To the world, Little Richard was fearless, but privately he lived with torment, caught between faith fame and forbidden love. Throughout his career, whispers followed him. In the 1960s and 1970s, his close companionship with the young prodigy Billy Preston became the subject of constant speculation. Preston, dubbed the Fifth Beatle for his collaborations with the Beatles, and later a respected gospel and R&B artist in his own right, was often by Richard's side on tour. Band members and crew recalled how the two were inseparable, sharing hotel rooms, slipping away together after shows and exchanging looks that revealed a bond deeper than mentorship. One insider described them as two lovers on the run from the world, a phrase that captures the intensity and secrecy of their connection. Yet Richard himself was his own biggest contradiction. On stage, he was flamboyant, wearing purple lipstick and sequined suits, screaming and laughing in open defiance of conservative norms. But off stage, he often denied his sexuality, turning to religion and declaring himself saved. At different times, he publicly renounced homosexuality, calling it a sin, only to later admit in interviews that he had relationships with both men and women. His battle wasn't only with the world, it was within his own heart. Do you think Little Richard's constant back and forth between embracing his truth and denying it was his way of surviving, or did it rob him of true peace? His bond with Billy Preston was never confirmed, but the signs were too strong to ignore. Musically, the synergy between them was undeniable. When Richard blasted the keys with reckless abandon, Billy responded with soulful organ chords that seemed like an intimate conversation between two souls who couldn't speak openly. Their chemistry left fans wondering if they were witnessing more than just music. It was as if love itself was coded into the sound. The tragedy is that Little Richard never found freedom in love. Despite living until 2020, when he died at 87, he spent much of his life trying to reconcile the preacher inside him with the flamboyant star the world adored. Preston, who died in 2006, took his secrets with him as well, leaving behind only speculation and half-spoken truths. Together, they embodied the paradox of Black queer artistry in the 20th century, powerful enough to change the world's sound, yet too constrained to live authentically. Little Richard will always be remembered as a trailblazer of music, but behind the sequins and screams was a man trapped between desire and doctrine, a legend who gave everything to the world but never fully claimed his own heart. Billy Preston. Billy Preston's life was a symphony of triumph and turbulence. Nicknamed the Fifth Beatle after performing with the band during their legendary Get Back sessions, he was also a child prodigy who played keyboards for gospel giants like Mahalia Jackson and R&B legends like Ray Charles before most teenagers had finished high school. His own hits, Will It Go Round in Circles and Nothing from Nothing, proved that Preston wasn't just a sideman, he was a star in his own right. Yet behind the joyful smile he often carried on stage, Billy lived with the crushing weight of secrecy. Throughout the 1960s and 1970s, his close bond with Little Richard raised eyebrows across the music world. Preston began touring with him as a teenager, and those who worked alongside them often whispered that the relationship was more than musical. They were said to vanish together after shows, share long nights behind closed doors, and display an intimacy that wasn't typical of a mentor and protege. Richard, flamboyant, yet conflicted, became both a guide and a mirror to Billy, a fellow Black artist navigating the impossible intersection of faith, sexuality, and fame. But Preston's struggle went far beyond rumor. Raised in the church, he internalized the fear that any admission of same-sex love would destroy his gospel roots and career. That fear manifested in silence, even as those closest to him noticed the toll it took. In a rare 1995 interview, he admitted he had been molested as a child by a local pastor, an experience that shaped his complicated relationship with intimacy. He never publicly came out, but many biographers and colleagues suggest that his inability to embrace his authentic self was one of his deepest battles. Do you believe Billy Preston's silence protected his career, or do you think it only deepened the pain he carried until his final days? As the years went on, his personal demons grew louder. Legal troubles and drug addiction clouded his legacy, overshadowing his extraordinary contributions to music. In 1991, he was arrested on charges related to cocaine possession and later for insurance fraud. Yet no matter how turbulent his private life became when he sat down at the keyboard, he was pure magic. His work with the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, and countless R&B stars cemented his place as one of music's great collaborators. Tragically, Billy Preston's final years were marked by illness. He battled hypertension and kidney disease, spending his last months in a coma before dying in 2006 at the age of 59. When the tributes poured in, artists praised his genius, but few dared to address the whispers that had followed him all his life. Like so many black artists of his era, he was celebrated for his sound but denied the freedom to live and love openly. Billy Preston's story is one of brilliance entwined with heartbreak, a man whose organ riffs electrified the world but whose heart remained muted. His music will forever echo with joy, but behind those notes lies the tragedy of a love that history never allowed him to claim. Whitney Houston. Whitney Houston was more than a singer. She was a cultural force. With over 200 million records sold, she became the most awarded female artist of all time, her voice soaring through anthems like I Will Always Love You and Greatest Love of All. On stage, she radiated grace, glamour, and strength. Yet behind the dazzling spotlight, Whitney lived with a secret that revealed the cruel double life demanded of black women in entertainment. At the heart of this secret was Robin Crawford, her confidant, her protector, and according to Robin's own 2019 memoir, her first great love. The two met as teenagers in East Orange, New Jersey, and quickly became inseparable. Robin described their bond as an all-consuming friendship that evolved into romance before Whitney was propelled into superstardom. But as Clive Davis and the music industry began grooming her for mass appeal, whispers about Whitney's personal life became dangerous. Managers, family members, and executives feared that rumors of a same-sex relationship could derail her career. Whitney's mother, gospel singer Cissy Houston, reportedly made it clear she would never accept her daughter living openly with Robin. Under this crushing weight, Whitney distanced herself, entering a public relationship and later a turbulent marriage with Bobby Brown. Yet even as the world saw Bobby on her arm, Robin remained in the shadows, accompanying her on tours, attending rehearsals, and serving as her right hand. Insiders recall that Whitney often turned to Robin for comfort after explosive fights with Bobby, and some believe Robin was the only person who truly understood the star behind the legend. Letters, private notes, and quiet glances were the fragments of a love story buried by prejudice. Do you think Whitney would have lived a longer, happier life if she had chosen love with Robin over the pressures of fame and family? By the 1990s, the strain of hiding combined with the chaos of her marriage began to take its toll. Whitney turned increasingly to drugs, a battle that became public and overshadowed her career. Robin eventually walked away, unable to endure the toxicity that consumed Whitney's world. Many fans and biographers argue that Robin's departure marked a turning point, leaving Whitney without her anchor. When Robin finally confirmed their romance in her memoir, A Song for You, My Life with Whitney Houston. Whitney had already been gone for 7 years. Her 2012 death at the age of 48, found submerged in a Beverly Hills hotel bathtub, shocked the world. For Robin, the confession was not gossip. It was testimony, a way to honor the love they shared, but could never celebrate openly. Whitney Houston's legacy remains monumental, a voice unmatched, a career that shattered barriers, and a presence that still inspires. But her personal story is also one of loss, not just of life, but of the freedom to love authentically. The tragedy is not only that we lost her too soon, but that even in her lifetime, she was denied the chance to live fully as herself. Robin Crawford. For decades, Robin Crawford's name floated through the background of Whitney Houston's story like a shadow, always there, always close, but never explained. To the public, she was Whitney's assistant creative director and most trusted friend. To insiders, however, Robin was something far more profound, the woman who held Whitney's heart during her most formative years. When Robin finally broke her silence in her 2019 memoir, A Song for You, My Life with Whitney Houston, The world received confirmation of what had long been whispered. She and Whitney had shared a deep romantic relationship. Robin first met Whitney in the late 1970s when both were teenagers in New Jersey. From the start, their bond was inseparable. Robin described nights spent laughing, sharing secrets, and discovering love with a raw honesty that felt unshakable. She became Whitney's first true partner, offering stability and affection before the machinery of fame claimed her. But as Whitney's career took off in the 1980s under the watch of Clive Davis and her mother Cissy Houston, the pressure to conform was relentless. Robin recalled that Whitney once gave her a Bible, saying they had to end the physical side of their relationship to protect both of their futures. It was a heartbreaking decision forced not by lack of love, but by fear of exposure. Despite this sacrifice, Robin remained by Whitney's side for more than 2 decades. She managed rehearsals, calmed tensions within the entourage, and protected Whitney from the harshness of an industry that saw her as a product rather than a person. Even when Bobby Brown entered the picture, Robin quietly endured the pain of watching the woman she loved spiral into a destructive marriage. Many close to Whitney observed that Robin was her anchor, the one who kept her grounded when fame and drugs threatened to consume her. Do you think Robin's decision to stay silent for so many years was loyalty, or did it cost Whitney the chance to live her truth openly? By the mid-2000s, Robin could no longer watch the self-destruction. She walked away, a decision that devastated her, but one she felt was necessary for her own survival. Tragically, Whitney's downward spiral accelerated after Robin's absence. When Whitney died in 2012, Robin mourned privately, refusing to engage with tabloids that twisted their history into scandal. It wasn't until 2019 that she decided to speak not for gossip, but to reclaim the dignity of their love. Her memoir painted a picture of devotion, sacrifice, and grief. She insisted that Whitney was far more than the headlines, that she was vulnerable, kind, and searching for freedom. Robin's book became both a love letter and an act of liberation, allowing the world to see the side of Whitney hidden for too long. Robin Crawford's story is that of a woman who loved in silence, sacrificed her own happiness, and ultimately became the silent witness to one of music's greatest tragedies. Without her, Whitney's story is incomplete. With her, we see the full truth behind the voice that shook the world, was a love that dared not speak its name. Marvin Gaye. Marvin Gaye was the embodiment of soul. With his smoldering voice and timeless classics like What's Going On and Sexual Healing. He shaped the sound of Motown and became a global icon of romance. His image was built on desire. Women fainted at his concerts. Magazines hailed him as one of the sexiest men alive, and his songs painted him as the ultimate ladies' man. Yet in 2018, decades after his death, a revelation shook this carefully preserved image. Legendary producer Quincy Jones claimed Marvin had once been intimate with none other than Hollywood superstar Marlon Brando. The statement landed like a bombshell. Quincy said bluntly, Brando would sleep with anything. He'd sleep with a mailbox. James Baldwin, Richard Pryor, Marvin Gaye. For Marvin's family, the allegation was outrageous. They immediately denied it, calling the claim damaging and untrue. One relative even accused Quincy of fabricating the story to gain attention. But denials didn't extinguish the rumor. In fact, they fanned the flames. Fans and journalists began revisiting Marvin's Los Angeles years in the 1970s, where Brando and Gaye both moved in elite artist circles. The thought of two cultural giants, one the king of soul, the other a Hollywood rebel sharing an intimate bond, was both shocking and strangely believable. Some insiders suggested they had crossed paths at all-night parties where the worlds of music and cinema collided. While no photographs or letters ever surfaced, the idea lingered. What made the rumor so unsettling was how it clashed with Marvin's cultivated persona. He was the voice of sensual heterosexual love, admired by millions of women. To even suggest he might have had a same-sex relationship challenged the very foundation of his brand. Do you think Quincy Jones's words revealed a hidden truth about Marvin? Or were they an unfair attack on a man who could no longer defend himself? The truth may never be known, What is certain is that Marvin Gaye's personal life was already fraught with contradictions. His marriages to Anna Gordy and Janice Hunter were stormy, filled with passion, but also jealousy and abuse. He openly admitted to sexual fluidity in his music and interviews, but stopped short of publicly embracing anything outside the traditional image demanded of him. Behind the smooth voice and tailored suits was a man battling inner demons, addiction, depression, and the crushing expectations of fame. Marvin's life ended tragically in 1984 when he was shot and killed by his own father during a family dispute just one day before his 45th birthday. The world mourned a legend, but the mysteries of his private life endured. The Brando rumor, whether true or not, deepened the complexity of his legacy. Marvin Gaye's story reminds us that legends are rarely as simple as the images sold to the public. He was a genius of love songs, yet a man whose own loves were tangled in secrecy and scandal. And perhaps that's why his music still resonates, because within every note lies the sound of longing for freedom, both personal and artistic, that Marvin never fully achieved. Ma Rainey, before there was R&B, before gospel crossed into popular culture, there was Gertrude Ma Rainey, the indomitable mother of the blues. Born in 1886 in Georgia, Ma Rainey became one of the first black women to record blues music commercially, leaving behind more than 100 recordings between 1923 and 1928. She brought the raw voice of Southern black life into the spotlight, and her stage presence, bold costumes, gold teeth, and unflinching lyrics made her unforgettable. But beyond her music, Ma Rainey also carried a secret. She was among the earliest African-American artists rumored to have loved women at a time when such truth could destroy a career. One of the most persistent whispers connected her to fellow blues queen Bessie Smith, who once toured with Ma in a vaudeville troupe. Audiences saw them as mentor and protege, but those backstage spoke of a closeness that suggested something deeper. They traveled together across the South, performing for segregated audiences while navigating the dangers of Jim Crow. In those grueling years on the road, it was said their relationship transcended professional ties. Ma herself left the strongest evidence of her desires in her 1928 track, Prove It On Me Blues. In it, she boldly sang, "Went out last night with a crowd of my friends, they must have been women 'cause I don't like no men." At a time when black women already faced crushing discrimination, this was nothing short of revolutionary. To many historians, the song was a coded declaration of her attraction to women, possibly a love letter to Bessie. Do you think Ma Rainey's fearless lyrics were her way of living authentically, or just a clever disguise to slip the truth past a prejudiced society? Unlike many who came after her, Ma didn't hide her queerness entirely. Police records even show she was arrested in 1925 for hosting an all-female party described as indecent. Still, her career didn't collapse. Instead, she doubled down, continuing to perform draped in sequins, singing about forbidden desires with a sly smile. Her boldness was not just personal, it was political. She gave voice to experiences most women of her era dared not speak aloud. Her rumored romance with Bessie Smith was never publicly confirmed, and no letters or photographs have survived. Yet the passion in their music, the chemistry of their stage presence, and the stories passed down through generations point to a bond that was both intimate and defiant. If true, theirs was one of the earliest same-sex love stories in black music history. Ma Rainey died in 1939 at the age of 53, long before conversations about sexuality and identity became mainstream. But her legacy lives on not just as a pioneer of the blues, but as a black woman who challenged societal norms with every note she sang. In her coded words and audacious performances, she carved space for those who would follow, proving that, even in silence, love leaves its mark. Bessie Smith. Bessie Smith, remembered as the Empress of the Blues, was one of the most influential voices of the early 20th century. Born in Chattanooga, Tennessee in 1894, she rose from poverty to become the highest-paid black performer of the 1920s. With hits like Downhearted Blues and Nobody Knows You When You're Down and Out, She sold more than 780,000 records in her first year with Columbia, an extraordinary feat for any artist of that era, let alone a black woman in segregated America. Her voice was bold, commanding, and unapologetically emotional. But beyond the spotlight, Bessie lived a personal life just as daring, filled with passion, scandal, and whispered love stories that the public was never allowed to see. Among the most persistent rumors was her relationship with her mentor, Gertrude Moraney. The two toured together in traveling shows, sharing cramped quarters and endless nights on the road. Many who traveled with them described their bond as unusually close a companionship that seemed to stretch far beyond mentorship. Some scholars suggest that Ma introduced Bessie to the freedom of expressing her sexuality through music and performance. While Bessie later pursued numerous affairs with men, including a rocky marriage to Jack G, accounts from the time strongly indicate she also loved women. One of the most vivid examples comes from her song The Boy in the Boat, recorded in the 1930s. With sly humor, it references lesbian relationships, a bold move in an era when even subtle hints of queerness could destroy careers. Offstage contemporaries recalled that Bessie often openly flirted with women, at times even more boldly than with men. Her bisexuality wasn't just rumor, it was part of the vibrant underground culture of the Harlem Renaissance, where art and forbidden love intertwined. Do you believe Bessie Smith's boldness in loving freely helped pave the way for future artists, or did it ultimately shorten her career in a hostile society? Despite her success, Bessie's personal life was riddled with chaos. Her marriage to Jack G was marred by violence and infidelity. She reportedly had affairs with chorus girls and women in her traveling troupes, relationships that were whispered about but never publicly acknowledged. Yet these secret romances seemed to fuel her music, adding raw honesty to her performances. Her career faltered during the Great Depression, but she staged a powerful comeback in the mid-1930s, recording with younger jazz musicians and proving she could adapt. Tragically, her life ended in 1937 after a car accident on a Mississippi highway. She was only 43. For decades, myths surrounded her death, including the false story that she was refused treatment at a whites-only hospital. What remains undeniable is that the world lost one of its greatest voices far too soon. Bessie Smith's legacy is not only in her groundbreaking music, but also in the courage she embodied. She lived loudly, loved boldly, and despite the dangers, refused to erase herself. Though history often hides her same-sex relationships in footnotes, her life stands as proof that love, no matter how forbidden, has always been part of the true story of black music. Sylvester. In the glitter-soaked nights of the 1970s, one voice soared above the disco ball haze. Sylvester. Born in 1947 in Los Angeles, Sylvester James Jr. became an icon who blurred the boundaries of gender sexuality and music. With his falsetto soaring through anthems like You Make Me Feel Mighty Real and Dance Disco Heat, he carved out space for queer visibility in an era that demanded silence. While Donna Summer ruled the mainstream charts, Sylvester ruled the underground clubs. He didn't just sing about freedom, he embodied it, strutting across stages in sequins makeup and flowing gowns. Yet even for Sylvester, there were whispers of a love hidden in the shadows, his rumored relationship with Motown powerhouse Harvey Fuqua. Harvey Fuqua was no ordinary figure. A founding member of the Moonglows, a mentor to Marvin Gaye, and a producer at Motown, he held immense influence. When Sylvester began gaining momentum in San Francisco's music scene, Fuqua became both a collaborator and protector. Industry insiders noticed Sylvester received opportunities that others fought years to achieve. Recording sessions, touring support, and a visible platform came swiftly, sparking rumors that Harvey's affection for Sylvester wasn't just professional. The two were often seen together at private gatherings where their closeness went beyond business. Some whispered that Harvey treated Sylvester not as a client, but as a partner. Still, the relationship was never publicly acknowledged. The contrast between the two men made the rumor irresistible. Harvey, the polished architect of Motown's order, and Sylvester, the glittering rebel who challenged every norm. Their rumored connection symbolized the clash between tradition and liberation, a bond that both fueled Sylvester's rise and placed him under constant scrutiny. Do you think Harvey Fuqua truly loved Sylvester, or was he simply protecting a star who mirrored the freedom Harvey himself couldn't claim? While his personal life stayed shrouded, Sylvester never apologized for who he was on stage. He became the first openly gay black male star to reach international success without bending to industry demands. In a disco era often dismissed as shallow, he turned songs into weapons of pride and survival. His music wasn't just entertainment, it was liberation. For countless queer fans, especially those in Black and Latino communities, Sylvester was proof that authenticity could be louder than prejudice. Tragically, Sylvester's life was cut short. In 1988, at just 41 years old, he died of complications from AIDS, one of the first major celebrities to pass away from the epidemic. Even in death, he defied expectations. He willed all future royalties from his music to San Francisco AIDS organizations, ensuring that his legacy would continue to fight for the marginalized. Today, Sylvester is remembered not only as the queen of disco, but also as a fearless pioneer. Whether his bond with Harvey Fuqua was romantic or not, the whispers only add to the mystique of a man who lived loudly, loved freely, and left behind music that still makes people feel mighty real. Harvey Fuqua. Harvey Fuqua's name doesn't always stand in the spotlight, but his fingerprints are all over the golden age of R&B. Born in 1929 in Louisville, Kentucky, he first found fame as the founder of the Moonglows, a doo-wop group that gave Marvin Gaye his start. Later, as a producer and executive at Motown, Fuqua became one of the most powerful figures behind the curtain. He discovered talent-refined careers and shaped the very sound of American soul. Without Harvey, Motown, as we know, it might never have existed. Yet beneath the polished suits and quiet authority, there are whispers of a private life he never spoke of, rumors of an intimate bond with Sylvester, the flamboyant queen of disco. To the outside world, Harvey was all discipline. He carried himself like a businessman in every room he entered, earning respect not just as a musician, but as a strategist who knew how to package raw talent for the world stage. Sylvester, on the other hand, was his complete opposite. Glitter falsetto sequins and unapologetic queerness defined his art. Their partnership began in the late 1970s when Sylvester was ready to move from San Francisco's underground clubs into national fame. Harvey provided production guidance and industry access, while Sylvester gave him the chance to attach his name to a revolutionary new sound. But those close to them whispered that their relationship wasn't built on business alone. Sylvester received unusual favoritism, prime studio time, high-profile opportunities, and Harvey's unwavering loyalty. In an industry where nothing was given without reason, people speculated that Harvey's devotion came from more than professional admiration. Their chemistry at private parties, the way Harvey watched Sylvester perform, and the intimacy of their shared appearances all fueled the suspicion that they were partners in more ways than one. Do you think Harvey's closeness to Sylvester was genuine love, or simply a strategic connection to control and shape one of disco's brightest stars? If the rumors were true, Harvey faced an impossible bind. As a respected Motown executive, his reputation depended on appearing traditional and untouchable in a conservative industry. Any suggestion of a same-sex romance could have shattered his standing and erased the authority he built. For that reason, neither man ever confirmed the whispers. Yet Harvey's protective role in Sylvester's life was undeniable. Without him, Sylvester may not have secured the resources to record "You Make Me Feel Mighty Real," a song that became both a disco classic and a queer anthem. Harvey Fuqua lived a long life, passing away in 2010 at the age of 80. His obituary celebrated him as a producer, mentor, and visionary. They spoke of Marvin Gaye, of Motown, of the Moonglows, but not of Sylvester, nor of the whispers that trailed him. Perhaps that's fitting for a man who thrived in the shadows, building others' careers while hiding pieces of his own truth. His legacy is one of duality, the disciplined architect who gave Motown its backbone, and the man tied forever to a disco icon whose openness contrasted with his silence. If Sylvester was the glitter Harvey Fuqua was the structure holding it in place, and together, they left a mark that neither could have achieved alone. Maxwell. In the mid-1990s, when R&B was dominated by smooth ballads and hip-hop fusion, one voice emerged that felt both classic and entirely new: Maxwell. Born Gerald Maxwell Rivera in Brooklyn in 1973, he became one of the leading figures of the neo-soul movement, alongside Erykah Badu and D'Angelo. His 1996 debut album, Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite, was hailed as a masterpiece, earning platinum status and a Grammy nomination. Songs like Ascension, Don't Ever Wonder, and Whenever, Wherever, Whatever made him a household name, celebrated for his velvety falsetto and romantic lyricism. But while his music was open, tender, and revealing, Maxwell himself remained shrouded in mystery. Unlike many artists of his generation, he fiercely guarded his personal life, giving the world little more than whispers. In the early 2000s, those whispers grew louder. Rumors circulated in New York's art scene that Maxwell had a male companion, a photographer or poet, depending on who told the story. At underground gallery shows in Chelsea or small jazz clubs downtown, witnesses claimed they saw Maxwell with the same unnamed man, even once holding hands quietly in a corner. It wasn't a grand public gesture, but in a room full of people who understood the unspoken, it felt monumental. Those fleeting moments ignited speculation that some of Maxwell's most intimate songs were inspired by a love hidden from the spotlight. Maxwell never confirmed or denied these rumors. He gave few interviews, and when asked about his personal life, he redirected the conversation back to his music. His silence only added to the intrigue, making fans listen harder to his lyrics for clues. Was Lifetime about a secret romance? Was this woman's work simply a cover or a coded confession? Critics debated while Maxwell stayed silent, letting the mystery become part of his brand. Do you think Maxwell's choice to stay silent protected his artistry? Or did it deny fans the chance to see the full truth behind his songs? Part of Maxwell's allure was this duality. On stage, he was raw, often closing his eyes and pouring his heart into every note, as if singing to one specific soul. Off stage, he was nearly invisible, rarely seen at celebrity parties or red carpets. Some insiders believe the secrecy wasn't just preference, it was protection. For a black male R&B star in the early 2000s, being openly queer could have risked career collapse. Maxwell's silence may have been the price he paid to remain at the top. Even so, fans embraced him, projecting their own experiences of hidden love and longing onto his music. His 2001 album Now debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, cementing his status as a neo-soul legend. Yet the rumors persisted, creating a parallel narrative: Maxwell the artist and Maxwell the enigma, whose private life was as haunting as his songs. Prince Rogers Nelson was more than a musician, he was a phenomenon. With over 150 million records sold worldwide, 7 Grammy Awards, and a Rock and Roll Hall of Fame induction, Prince redefined what it meant to be an artist. He blurred lines of gender, race, and sexuality, appearing in lace shirts, eyeliner, and high heels, all while shredding guitars and dominating the charts with classics like Purple Rain, When Doves Cry, and Kiss. To the public, his androgynous image was a bold, artistic choice. But for those who knew him, it was also a reflection of something more personal, a friendship-turned-rumored love story with childhood companion Andre Simone. Prince and Andre grew up together in Minneapolis, bonded by poverty and a dream of escaping it through music. In the early 1970s, they lived in small apartments, shared meals, and hustled gigs. When Prince's career began to take shape, Andre was by his side, serving as his bassist and closest confidant. Fans who watched their dynamic on stage noticed an electricity that felt deeper than brotherhood. Some even believe Andre's presence inspired Prince's flamboyant stage persona, a daring blend of masculine and feminine that seemed to echo an intimacy beyond friendship. By the time Prince released his early album, songs like Do Me Baby and Private Joy sparked speculation. Critics and fans dissected the lyrics, wondering if they were coded messages to Andre. Their closeness, the secrecy surrounding Prince's private life, and his refusal to confirm or deny only added fuel to the whispers. Do you think Prince's androgynous style was purely performance, or was it a hidden tribute to a love he never acknowledged openly? The speculation grew even stronger after their dramatic split. In the early 1980s, Andre left Prince's band abruptly, a move insiders described as more than professional tension. Rumors swirled that their personal relationship had fractured, that feelings too complicated for words had torn them apart. Prince, known for controlling every aspect of his world, could not control the heartbreak. For years afterward, fans saw traces of Andre in Prince's art, in lyrics about betrayal, in the longing of ballads, and in the rage of his funk anthems. Even as Prince skyrocketed to superstardom, Andre remained a ghost in his story. Critics argue that Prince's most daring artistic choices, his blurring of gender roles, his sensual stagecraft, his defiance of labels, were shaped by that early relationship. Whether romantic or not, Andre Simone was the only person who could unbalance him, and that vulnerability became the foundation of Prince's mystique. Prince's death in 2016 at the age of 57 shocked the world. His vault of unreleased music, his genius, and his fearless artistry remain unmatched. But the whispers of his connection with Andre Simone linger, coloring the way fans interpret his legacy. If true, their bond was one of the greatest hidden love stories in rock and R&B, a secret carved into the very DNA of Prince's art. Prince taught us that labels mean little when the music is eternal. And perhaps the greatest mystery of all is whether his androgynous revolution was not just art, but the memory of a love too fragile to survive in the light. B.B. Slade. For decades, gospel music was seen as sacred territory filled with voices raised to heaven, untouched by the worldly controversies of secular music. Then came Anthony Charles Williams II, better known by his stage names Ton X and later B.B. Slade. Born in 1975 into a San Diego pastor's family, Ton X was a prodigy who blended gospel with R&B, hip-hop, and funk. His 2004 album, Out the Box, sold over 1 million copies worldwide and won 6 Stellar Awards, making him one of gospel's brightest stars. His flamboyant style, eclectic sound, and fearless performances marked him as different. But what truly set him apart was his decision to live openly as a gay man in a church culture that demanded silence. Whispers about Ton X's sexuality began early. Fans noticed his fashion choices, his theatricality, and the emotional intensity in his performances. Backstage rumors spread that he had a close, possibly romantic bond with a fellow male gospel singer. Tour members described the two slipping away after shows, sharing private dinners and exchanging glances that went beyond friendship. In another genre, it might have been overlooked. But in gospel, even the suggestion of queerness could end a career. The turning point came in 2009 when Ton X publicly acknowledged his attraction to men in a now infamous interview. For the first time in gospel history, a major star had said the words out loud. The reaction was immediate and explosive. Churches pulled his music from their programs. Gospel radio stations stopped playing his songs. Fans who once praised him as an anointed voice now condemned him as a sinner. Some of his closest allies in the industry distanced themselves overnight. Do you think B.B. Slade's bold honesty was a betrayal of gospel tradition? Or was it the act of courage the church desperately needed? After the fallout, Ton X shed his old name and rebranded as B.B. Slade, embracing his queerness more fully. His music became raw, infused with the pain of rejection and the freedom of authenticity. Songs like Yes and Naked Truth carried a different weight, not just gospel praise, but confession and defiance. He collaborated with secular artists, shifted into more experimental R&B, and created art that no longer bowed to the church's expectations. Yet the scars of being shunned by his own community never left. B.B. Slade's story is a painful paradox. He was both celebrated and condemned, embraced for his talent, but rejected for his truth. In interviews, he admitted that the very institution that raised him also tried to silence him, leaving him torn between faith and authenticity. Even today, gospel fans remain divided. Some still see him as a prodigal who turned away, while others view him as a pioneer who cracked the wall of silence surrounding queer voices in the Black church. In the end, B.B. Slade represents both tragedy and triumph. He lost the mainstream gospel platform that once crowned him king, but he gained something greater: freedom. His voice, powerful and unashamed, still resonates as a reminder that truth always has a cost, but silence costs even more. In the end, these hidden relationships remind us that even the brightest stars of R&B and gospel carried secrets the world wasn't ready to accept. Their music gave us freedom, but their private lives were bound in silence, fear, and sacrifice. From Luther Vandross to B.B. Slade, these stories reveal the cost of authenticity in a world that punished truth. Their legacies live on, but so do the questions they left behind. Do you believe these legends were right to hide their love? Or should they have risked everything to live openly,